Hello, Frank.
Hello, Mike.
I'm Scary Mike.
What's scary is we're minutes from showtime and you're still screwing around.
Why aren't you more terrified?
This is our first show.
Yes.
We have to be prepared.
I'm gonna cut off your nipple.
You got all the notes there, Frank?
All of them, right here, ready to roll.
I think you missed one.
Did I? Which one?
Well, that one.
About the annoying co-host? Yeah, that one. Let me write that down. Find new.
Yeah, I'm talking about movie topics, and he's talking about me. Yeah, right.
Can I see that actually?
Okay.
I mean, it really does look nice.
Yeah,
end of the day.
NECA makes amazing stuff.
I mean, it looks like a nice prop.
It's more than a prop. I mean, it's just. Oh wait, careful.
Sorry.
Thank you. The blades are a little tricky, especially the pinky.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
See, what's really crazy about it is when you're.
What? The fuck?
Whenever you're ready. Mike, this isn't a joke. All right? This is our first show that we're trying to record with the special effects and whatnot, and we can't be screwing around. It's really time to buckle down, and we gotta get started here, okay? So take a minute.
Sorry.
Let's get serious.
You're right, Frank.
All right, so.
Okay. You son of a bitch! Welcome to Mitchoy Chats. I'm Michael J. Foy.
And I'm Frank Mitchell.
And tonight, we've got a very special episode. Frank, we're not really discussing a particular movie.
No, we're not really discussing any particular topic. This is a bit of a what we've been watching episode.
That's true, but there are a lot of things that we've been watching.
Many things.
There's so much content these days.
My eyes have been open for the last 3 weeks, and I've seen many a thing.
Wow. How do you do? Is it like Clockwork Orange style?
No, if it was like that, I don't know if I would be able to get anything done because like the mounting anxiety and tension that I would feel, I wouldn't be able to properly enjoy anything. It'd be like watching Breaking Bad like nonstop. You know, you have to like stop after a while.
Oh my God, yes.
Or like with Black Mirror, like you watch 3 episodes of Black Mirror and you're on the roof of your house in your robe holding your phone, like destroy them, they'll kill us all.
Well, speaking of Black Mirror, did you see the entire new season?
I saw 1 episode out of the new season.
Really? Which one?
Mm-hmm. I almost said playtest, but that was from last season.
Yeah.
That was my favorite from last season. This one, it was the dating app.
Oh, okay. Any particular reason why you jumped to that episode?
No, it was just we scrolled open, me and the lady were watching TV, and we're like, we can't keep watching Family Guy and friggin' the 3 or 4 shows that we keep watching, The Office, Parks and Rec. We're like, we got to put something else on. So
gotcha.
We were like, let's throw on an episode of Black Mirror, and we heard that this season was not as dour as the last seasons.
Ooh, I don't know. I feel like it is and it isn't.
Because I would say
maybe it's dour in a different way.
I would say a number of, if you were going to take each season, I would say that each season probably is like 80% dour and 20% uplifting. And from what I've heard is that this season is more like 60% uplifting and 40% dour.
That's interesting. It's an interesting critique. The episode you were talking about is Hang the DJ.
Yes.
Which is, I think in some ways might be it's definitely one of the most positive through that season. The first episode, the USS McAllister, I think is horrific and really, really terrifying. But Black Mirror is just one of those shows. You're absolutely right. You got to take breaks. Like you watch an episode, you lose faith in humanity. You need to reset, eat some pizza, cry, put a robe on. Like
there's a whole process of things you have to go through when you're watching Black Mirror. So it's just easier to take it in small doses.
Yeah.
Like cyanide. You're not gonna die if you take a lot of cyanide. You're gonna die, but little bits. I don't know why you'd want little bits. Just
Unless
go.
you're going to Princess Bride.
All right, there you
and
go.
be like that. Expose yourself gradually.
What else have you been watching, Mike Foy?
Well, I did want to mention just before we get off of Black Mirror that I did really like, I liked all the seasons so far, and with season 3, I really liked the last episode, which was Black Museum, which is showing you that all of these universes, all these stories may be connected.
Why? Why?
Right.
Why does everybody
Why?
need a connected universe that's, oh, well, this might happen and that might... The Dark Tower
But it's maybe, though. But it's maybe.
They're talking about how the Dark Tower is linking all of Stephen King's works together, and I'm like,
Right.
shoot me in the face.
But
this
yes,
is like,
but those were novels first.
even still, like the
No,
whole
Frank,
like
he
the concept.
he wrote the first Gunslinger book in like 1980, 1981.
See, my question to him in his coke-fueled rage was that his conceit when he wrote it, or did it just kind of come about after writing it a few times, and he's like, oh, I could do this. And then he decided to do what it became. I don't know. End of the day, I am so sick of universes and connecting
World
all this
building
bullshit together. I'm like, give me one-shot movies. Like, whatever happened to these one-shot movies? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, whatever happened to the hour-and-a-half comedy? It's gone. You can't find an hour-and-a-half comedy now. It's always 2 hours. It's always hour and 59, 2 hours long. For what? No one needs to laugh that long. Give me an hour and a half. Let's move on to something else. Like,
An interesting opinion that you have expressed many times on the podcast.
I hate it. It bothers the shit out of me.
Gotcha.
But I don't know.
Well, I think with regards to Stephen King, his first major novel was 1974. So I mean, when you go through his books, I like the fact that a lot of them are taking place essentially in the same universe, but not all of them necessarily are. And that's what the Dark Tower is kind of talking about, is this idea of you have multiple universes or multiple outcomes for certain things, but there's a novel like The Stand, where the whole world, it's an apocalyptic novel. Well, there's other worlds where The Stand still happens, but it happens at a different time. And I do find that idea interesting. I do agree with you that I think especially now, there's a huge amount of focus on the world building and the universe building, which it's got its pros and cons. It's kind of cool, but at the same time, it's just like so overwhelming. Because you kind of feel like,
so much filler.
Okay, I have to see all of this to understand this, or I haven't seen Black Panther, but I saw the after credit scene thing already. I already know, okay, well that's the little bit of story that I needed to move forward into the next one.
There's so much filler in when you look at Marvel. I think this is like the 19th Marvel movie or
It's
something
something like that.
It's like we're way into Marvel territory. Not saying that there can't be a good Marvel movie. We're getting way off topic. But
I don't know if it is. I mean, you saw Black Panther, which is the most recent film.
The universe building in... I feel like there's something to be said where I feel like what we're coming down to is the same notion, basically. Like, some people should be allowed to do it. Most people shouldn't. And I think that's what it comes down to.
Commercialization is always, you have to walk that tightrope between artistry and commercialism. You have to have something that is, as much as I love David Lynch, is just interesting and different. You can't watch David Lynch movies all day necessarily, because you literally will not understand anything about your reality anymore. You'll just start going down this giant downward spiral. I did recently see Mulholland Drive, which I had never seen, and I think I mentioned it on an episode of the podcast. But it's that first half of that movie, I'm like, okay, I think I get it. The whole second half of the movie, I have no idea what's happening.
I feel like watching a David Lynch movie sometimes, it's just like he's watching it. He makes you watch it, and then halfway through he's like, all right, flip the switch on these motherfuckers. Because you're like, what are you thinking for some of these movies? Like, some of them I get, like Eraserhead, you get, it's it's about parenthood, whatever. Mm-hmm. Some of the allegories you can absolutely get. Some of them I'm like, I don't know what the fuck you're trying to say right now, but it is confusing and annoying, and I just talk to me, just talk to me, all right?
Oh, that's funny.
But universe building, David Lynch never felt the need to be like, well, Mulholland Drive, and and Twin Peaks might take place in the same universe. So, it's like, who cares? He's like, I'm gonna make one project. I'm gonna make another project. Like,
well, you're certainly partly right. I mean, with regards to like Blue Velvet and Twin Peaks, it's hitting on all the same ideas, the same themes of like the underbrush of suburbia. But yeah, it's interesting though that like some artists feel more of a pull to do something like that, while other ones absolutely let things sort of just lie. And there's certain directors or certain storytellers that like vehemently try not to do that. I mean, Carpenter has only directed technically one sequel in his entire canon, and it was arguably one of his worst. But you know, and you have somebody like Spielberg who makes a comment that he feels as if he's almost gets a little like too cocky going into a follow-up of any kind of project, because it's like, oh, well, I made the first one and it turned out, you know, great, it was a big hit or whatever, like, oh, this one will be great too. And he kind of has, not necessarily, he wasn't like Joel Schumacher and apologized to people for Batman and Robin for how bad that was.
I don't think anyone should apologize.
No, he did. He apologized for that movie, and he should have. But Spielberg didn't quite like apologize for The Lost World, but he was kind of like, look,
Batman
I get
is
it.
not that bad of a movie. In the scope of all those Batman movies, that wasn't that bad. But I'm sorry, go ahead.
Whoa.
There's a lot of hate. There's a lot of hate.
Batman and Robin is a piece of garbage.
Batman and
Don't
Robin
pull a Mike DeGioia.
No.
Wait a minute, people. Don't pull a Mike DeGioia and try to tell me that like Karate Kid 3 is like a great movie.
I'm not gonna say that. I don't want to get into a contrarian conversation of like, well, everyone says this movie sucks, but it's really great. Yeah. I'm not gonna say it's an amazing piece of work, but I will say that like, watch the other ones. I don't know about Batman Forever. That's all I'm going to say. I feel like
Batman Forever is better than Batman and Robin.
I don't know. Watch both of them. Seriously. Watch Batman, the 1989 version, just because it's Batman and it's 1989.
It's a great movie.
Score by Prince. Why not?
Yeah.
But then watch the second one.
Batman Returns, 1992, also a great movie.
Batman
great
doesn't
Christmas
kill people,
movie.
but he kills people with guns. You know, it makes sense. And watch the third one, though. Val Kilmer. Tell me what you think.
Val Kill franchise?
Then watch the fourth one and tell me about George Clooney and what a terrible job he did. But just tell me. Look, you can't look me in the eye and tell me that 4 is better than 3 is worse than 3. I feel like they're both pretty shitty.
It's worse.
No, they're both pretty bad.
It's worse.
I cannot say. I cannot agree with you.
So was Black Panther better than Batman Forever and Batman and Robin?
Black Panther was great. You know what I mean? Let's just say that right out of the gate. I feel like most Marvel movies, you're going to see them. They're going to be fun. They're going to be a good time at
the majority of them are definitely fun, and that's something I would definitely give them credit for.
I feel like this one was a lot about heritage. It was interesting that Black Panther is a mantle that is passed throughout their country, basically.
Oh, so it's like the Phantom.
Oh, okay. Or it's like one person has it, and that person is king, and that person defends the land, basically, and the people. So they take care of business, which is pretty cool. And it really deals with a lot about knowing your past and where you came from and stuff like that. And it was really interesting seeing all of the vibrant heritage that there is in it. And that's really, I think, what's interesting about it is you're watching a movie like Black Panther, which is a Marvel movie. You're looking for ass-kicking people in suits. But the ideas that they're tackling are pretty interesting. It does bother me that people say that he's the first black superhero, because we're forgetting the likes of Spawn and Blade and those wonderful men. But Al Simmons and
Blade, who is part of the Marvel universe.
Exactly. So it's like these little
those episodes of the animated series for Spider-Man, where there was like a whole like Blade like trilogy thing, which was awesome.
And there's so much to it that like you sort of forget about in the wake of everyone trying to look for like, this is the first female directed superhero movie. This is the first black superhero movie. So you can't negate the stuff that's come before it, because it's not gonna. I feel like it waters down yours when you're negating everything that came before it, because then who's to say that this won't be negated when something else comes out?
What you're saying is Black Panther is ignoring its own message of heritage.
No,
or not Black Panther, the people's interpretation of it. It seems like
it's possible. I don't know about that, but what I will say is fun time at the movies. They're great set pieces throughout. B, it's a good movie in terms of the enemy isn't just like fucking Skeletor, like He-Man, I want to destroy everyone. He has a compelling argument, and I can't say I disagree with him. His methods, not cool, but I do appreciate his anger and how he feels and why he feels that way. Like I feel like that's the scariest thing about a really good villain is that you agree with them a little bit.
Yeah, they make a convincing argument.
Yeah,
It's like everything. I think that's a big part of the reason. I mean, there's so many reasons, but big part of the reason why the Joker has always been such a highly, hailed villain, because he has reasonable arguments for a lot of things, which you can disagree with or not believe in, but you can't necessarily say he's entirely wrong.
It creates a lively debate, if nothing
Definitely.
else.
I definitely agree. Those are far more interesting villains, and if that's the villain for Black Panther, you've definitely piqued my interest. I'm more interested in that for sure than like Green Goblin, Willem Dafoe, and Spider-Man.
Because like I'd like to actually talk to you about it in a more spoiler sort of discussion, because
Okay.
there is, like, once you know the motives of all the characters, I think it's pretty interesting. And it's another thing that I want to talk about is a lot of people are making allegories between this movie and The Lion King, which I'm a little.
That's a little weird.
Well, it's not. I feel like it's not in the sense of like the imagery is the same or very similar. I won't say the same. There are moments that you see that you're like, oh, that is reminiscent of.
Well, like it's rivalry for the throne.
Yeah, those sorts of things.
Control of the country.
I feel like that, like Lion King was straight up like Macbeth. Like when you, that's all it was really. And this is not that. Like it is interesting how it unfolds, but it is not that. It is not as Shakespearean as The Lion King was. But I feel like people are just making that link because of the African imagery and stuff like that. I feel like they're like, well, looks like it's from Africa, so it's got to be like The Lion King. And I'm like, that's a terrible,
I certainly
terrible
hope not.
link to make. I don't like that at all.
Yeah.
Like,
I haven't heard this, but I'm curious to like read an article about it. That's weird.
but overall, Black Panther. I mean, you don't have to listen to me to check it out. It's made like over like millions. It's made millions of dollars at this point.
And from Frank Mitchell, I mean, this is a big deal.
Yeah, I mean, now's the time to go see it. He's like, oh, Frank, he said go check it out.
No,
so.
I mean, our record on the podcast, I mean, it's a lot of not really caring that much for a lot of Marvel movies.
Well,
so
even still, I mean, like, it's...
That's interesting. I'm just saying, it just makes me actually want to check it out. I recently saw The Void on Netflix.
Tell me about body horror on Netflix.
Oof. I do love just being able to have a platform like Netflix where you can essentially air more or less whatever you like, and not having
air. What
air.
year are you in? Like, tell me more, Grandpa.
I don't know. With this TV, I don't know what year are we in. I think it's interesting to have a platform where so many people can create a massive variety of content and find interesting ways to explore story. So, I mean, The Void is not the most original story. It's not the most original idea, but it's really effective and really creepy. It's definitely low budget, but it uses that to its advantage. It feels very much in the moment. I think that the acting is overall very good. For where this is, what it's kind of going for, the realism it's trying to convey. And there's an interesting mystery behind like what is going on, because there is a void. There is this like other place, but what is it? I don't know. What is it? What is coming out of it? Cronenbergian things. I don't know what to call it, and I don't want to say too much more because I think that The Void is one of those movies. Get together with your buddies, some beer, some pizza, and get your best girl, your best guy, and just get curled up in the dark and watch it.
Get ready for some weird shit.
You're gonna want to hide under the blankets. So you're gonna. It's especially the last, I would say, 20 minutes. It just kicks into high gear, and there's a lot of creepiness. So in terms of that factor, I enjoyed it. It was definitely worth checking out. And it was described to me, and I would describe it to you all the same. It's kind of like Hellraiser meets From Beyond. Okay. There's things, and you don't want to be anywhere near it. I'd be very curious to see a sequel, actually, to The Void. Because with regards to Hellraiser, I like the first one, but I always preferred the second. Because the first one opened the door. The second one goes down that rabbit hole.
Yeah, the second one kicks you through it.
It does. Like the second movie opens like, it's like, "Bah!" It's just immediately like screaming opera music in your face. It's like, oh, we're in for a movie. So I would be very curious to see.
Wait, you don't want Motorhead? You don't want...
Like Motorhead Hellraiser from Hellraiser 3?
Come on. You want Motorhead. You don't want fucking...
You know, Motorhead, it just barely saves Hellraiser 3 for me. But you know what it didn't save for me?
The CD guy? The CD?
Hellraiser Judgment, which is now out on video on demand. We have yet another Hellraiser movie, Frank Mitchell. This is the 10th Hellraiser film. I have no idea whether or not there is any continuity.
How do you think...
I watched this movie, Frank, okay? I've seen 8 of the Hellraisers. The only one I didn't see was the 9th one, which was the first one to not feature Doug Bradley, and was made solely to just keep the rights. And it is apparently god-awful. This one, supposedly, according to people who've seen the previous one, is a little better, but it's not good. Like,
how do you think that a filmmaker
good.
feels when the writer of the original piece has to tweet, "I have nothing to do with this movie"?
Did he really?
Oh yeah.
I did not know this. That's amazing.
It's bad. That is bad. Like, that is rough. Like that has got to be rough to take someone's character and then the creator of that character is like, this is not.
Yeah.
This has nothing to do with me.
Like, I will say, like, the guy who is portraying Pinhead, I mean, I don't think he does a bad job.
Would you say it's more script related? It's more, or it's just what the hell are you doing?
I think, to be honest, I do think it's a little bit more script related. It's a very unconventional Hellraiser movie. And what that means in 2018, it's kind of up for debate in and of itself.
Odd sentence because the original, is fairly, I won't say unconventional in the story sense, but definitely in a story device sense. Because I don't want to say
the first one it's really like a haunted house kind of ride.
It is.
And the second one is it's like a haunted house in an asylum sort of a thing. I mean, they all, starting with like the 5th movie, 5, 6, 7, and 8 are very much about like personal hell. It's very much more about like
this sentence 5, 6, 7, and 8. I'm sorry, it's too many fucking movies. Go ahead.
Well, technically, they still have to make 2 more to catch up with Friday the 13th. So
still, is that a bar you want to jump over?
No, I don't. I don't think that's a good idea. Technically, Halloween 10 comes out this year.
Well, that's the remake though, isn't it?
Right, and it's ignoring the previous sequels.
Who the fuck wouldn't want to see this though? Like, that's a different story.
It's a different story, but technically it is the 10th Halloween movie.
If Clive Barker was like, you know what, they're gonna bring me back for Hellraiser, let's do it, and we'll do it again. I'd love to see Clive Barker take another swing at Hellraiser. That'd be awesome, but it's not gonna happen.
No.
So for them to do that, I'm like, I'm always on the fence about that sort of shit.
My biggest, there's like obviously a lot of gripes with the movie. It's not terribly good. I don't necessarily regret seeing it because being a horror fan, you check stuff out.
Under the belt.
And it's there. But I would never watch it again. The most confusing thing to me, though, was that there was a mantle over a fireplace in this house, right? This like weird looking house in the middle of nowhere sort of a thing. And there's a bunch of these puzzle boxes, which are alluded to in the previous movies, that there's more than one. Because in Hellraiser 2, Dr. Channard, who's your main sort of villain, he has in his office multiple puzzle boxes on his desk. And then he collects another one. So I don't know if those didn't work, or why the one that he gets in that particular movie is the one that he uses. I'm not sure about the particulars. Because it's not quite clear, but I think in a lot of movies and storytelling, usually when you don't completely flesh some of those ideas out, it can kind of work in your benefit. Because in the sequence, you're just kind of looking around his office, and the characters are looking, and you're like, holy fuck, there's like a whole bunch of them. And you're like, what does that mean? And then
the keen observer will see that.
Yeah, it's all these little elements which I think are cool. So I kind of liked that they were referencing like we've got all these boxes and now it's getting later in time and people are not so amused by these puzzle boxes. And they're trying to find a new way to sort of collect the same souls that they've been doing. And they're like inviting people to this house, kind of like How to Catch a Predator. Like they literally get one guy through the internet, and I was like, okay, where's Chris Hansen? Like I just expected that to happen when the door was opened. But like they're just kind of hanging out all in this house, and there's a shot where like Pinhead's literally like sitting like this on like a chair, and he's kind of looks like it's like a little Darth Vader-ish. It's like, I'm like, what the fuck is happening?
You should never see Pinhead contemplating what to do. You're always seeing Pinhead come in like I've thought about what to do, and it's fucking kill you, and that's it.
And in all the earlier movies, that's what it is. It is these creatures come out of the void, not the void of Netflix, but come out of the void and. They're just like, yeah, okay, you're screwed. You're going to hell, and we're going to torture you, and it's going to be great.
They kick the door open. They're like, the box is open. It's done. Like, that's it.
It's very bizarre. Don't watch it. Don't watch it.
I don't think you had to tell anybody that, but...
Frank Mitchell, what else have you seen recently? Because you saw another movie.
I saw Jumanji, Welcome to the Jungle.
And how was that? Because it has been greenlit for a sequel.
Well, I will say that I can understand why.
Okay.
It is a generic action movie. But I will say that the original was a generic action movie. I love the original. But it's Robin Williams, you know what I mean? Like you can't not love it. But I think that the big difference with this one is that you're in the game world.
Right, versus the game world coming into reality.
Where in the original it was the game world exploded into the real world. But in this version, you are sucked in with the characters as well to the game world, and these kids become these avatars.
It's a video game now, though, right? Instead of a board game, so it's not a board game at all.
In 1996, at the end of Jumanji, some kids find it across the world, and they play it, and conceivably they are sucked into the crazy, wild world of Jumanji. But
look out for those pesky little monkeys.
Jumanji found its way back to America. And this one kid played it, and he got sucked in 1996, and he's been missing ever since.
Oh, okay.
And it has since changed itself into a video game because it's realized the kids don't fucking play board games anymore. So the game caught up with the times. And originally I'm like, this is stupid. A game can figure this out. And then I'm like, a game is sucking people in, and that's not realistic. Like, come on. So there are moments that you have to just kind of suspend your disbelief and be like, all right, what do you got, Jumanji? So end of the day.
Interesting.
Fun flick. They have lives. It's like they can die a couple times, and it's like
that's interesting.
Yeah, there's a lot of little fun bits that you're like, that's kind of cool. Like Jack Black is he's the cartographer character. Mm-hmm. He's the only one when they all look at the map. He's the only one who can see it and read it.
Oh,
so it's cool,
interesting.
Cool little stuff like that. That you're like, that's a cool little moment of things like that, and it's all about self-discovery and X, Y, and Z and all that fun stuff that a action, teenage, aimed action movie should be about. But
yes, because they're all teenagers, and when they get sucked in, they're obviously it's The Rock,
they
Kevin Hart,
these
Jack
avatars.
Black.
Yeah. Each one becomes an avatar that is skilled in certain ways that's going to help them survive, basically. And they have to do a certain number of tasks before they can get out. But overall, it was fun. It was a fun flick. I mean, like, nothing to write home about. I wouldn't watch it and be like, this is an amazing successor to the original Jumanji. But it's fun flick. Fun flick. If you didn't call it Jumanji, if you named it anything else, I'd still be like, fun. I'd enjoy it. It would make an interesting Jumanji sequel. But no, I'd say end of the day, check it out.
Okay.
Enjoyed it.
Interesting. I also watched A Futile and Stupid Gesture on Netflix.
This is about the culmination of National Lampoon.
Yes, the birth and creation of National Lampoon in the 70s, and the build to their first movie, which was Animal House, and then the development of Caddyshack, and the unfortunate and timely death of Doug Kenny, who was
untimely.
Well, I say untimely.
He was very timely.
No,
like, that's fucking
rude. No. But I think it's a David Wayne movie who he has made so many fantastic pieces, including Wet Hot American Summer, and it's now 2 sequel series on Netflix, which something like that on Netflix is just so much fun because they can be vulgar, they can be ridiculous, and you would never see like Wet Hot American Summer on like any network channel outside of maybe IFC. Like, it's just never going to happen. So to have a platform for something like that is really cool. And this movie was released directly onto Netflix, and there's a lot of fantastic people in it. But I think that Will Forte, as Doug Kenny, is really, really captivating and very moving. And the last, 10 minutes are tough. And it's very sad. No one really knows what happened with him, but it's believed that he committed suicide, and it's very sad.
No one knows what happened?
No, well, technically no, because no one was actually there when he supposedly fell off. But he was in Hawaii with Chevy Chase. Which is probably not the best idea, but doing it's mountains weird.
Of
cocaine.
You said that sentence, he was in Hawaii with Chevy Chase, and I'm automatically like, that motherfucker. That motherfucker. What did he have to do with it?
Yep.
But I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, that's all right. But he's played brilliantly by Joel McHale. And it's just the whole community thing. Like, it is so funny to see him play Chevy through this whole movie. I mean, there's appearances from so many fantastic people. But when Doug Kenny supposedly committed suicide, what they found was he had gone missing. They found his Jeep up by this hiking spot in these cliffs. And what they found was his shoes with his glasses on the edge of the cliff, and then they found him at the bottom. So they obviously presume that it could have been, but it also could have been an accident. And apparently Harold Ramis was the one who was quoted as saying that, oh, Doug probably slipped off the cliff while he was looking for a place to jump. And that was just the nature of all these people's relationships. And he knew everybody at that time. I mean, the creation of Saturday Night Live came from National Lampoon. You had Bill Murray, who joined later, but Chevy Chase, Harold Ramis, Gilda Radner, John Belushi, they were all part of the touring company. They were part of the National Lampoon Radio Hour, and then obviously got involved in making movies all together. I mean, it's just, despite all the craziness and the drugs and the bad blood between some of them, they all created some really fantastic comedy. And obviously, National Lampoon became a giant institution, which in today's day and age, who knows what Doug Kenny would think of it now. I mean, these movies now, within the last 18 years, since when was Van Wilder, 2002?
I feel like that was the last one that was really oh wow, they're still doing.
Yeah, it was
even
funny
that was,
and I
rough.
enjoyed it. It was a little rough.
That was rough.
But now it's just National Lampoon, Spring Break. It's just it's changed for sure.
Well, no, you see, here's the thing though, and here's a question to that is, have we changed or have they changed?
I think a big part of it's certainly the times.
I feel like there's a
he
part
died
of
in
it
1981.
Exactly. I feel like there's a part of it of there used to be, I feel like, ubiquitous comedy, or comedy that it can go across all languages, all barriers. There's something about certain types of comedy that just lands. You know what
physical
I mean?
comedy for
yes,
sure.
Yes, exactly. Something like that, like physical comedy. And I feel like there are certain things that just land no matter how you do it. And I feel like there are some times where these things just fucking happened so perfectly at just the right time, when it culminated as it did.
Yeah.
And it's just so interesting to see a story like that being told about someone who, if you were to say the name Doug Kenny, I would think that only people who are severely into this sort of stuff would
comedy
know.
Nerds.
Exactly, are going to know that. But if you were to say, Bill Murray or whoever, they're like, yeah, Saturday Night Live, blah, blah, blah. But when you say Doug Kenny, I wonder how many people know that name. You know what I mean? And I like that it's a movie about him, about his impact and about what he did, because National Lampoon is an institution right now, or was an institution. But I do think that the comedy that they roll with, I feel like once we've seen it enough, when you watch a movie I'm gonna say this and I will be shot in the face. Caddyshack, not funny to me.
Really?
I watched it a couple times and I'm just I get it. I get why. I feel like it's listening to the Beatles now. It's I get why they're influential, but I'm not going to listen to them and be this is unbelievable.
Did you see it late?
Yes, that was a big part of it too.
Okay, because I've been watching that movie probably since I was 8 years old. And I still think it's hysterical.
This is another thing of why I feel that nostalgic movies, before the age of 13, it's just, they're gold. and they will always
Sometimes
be
for
gold.
sure.
I feel like majority of the time, really, and I feel like when they're not, it's like a hard argument to try to get someone to admit that, like.
But when you rewatch some of those, sometimes it's real painful.
Exactly, and
Real
sometimes when you
painful.
watch it, you're like, oh god, no. But that's the thing. Like, I feel like sometimes the comedy after a while gets watered down in terms of we've seen fart, dick, and sex jokes so many times that
Sure.
after a while you sort of become a little desensitized to it.
Well, then also, too, you had something like, at the time Animal House hit, it was massive. It was huge. Caddyshack did not land in the same way and became more of a cult hit later on. But, you have something like that, regardless of maybe how it lands at the moment or the reputation it builds, you see it duplicated so many times, and that can do exactly what you're saying. It
that's the thing, I've
changes
seen-
it waters it down, and now you're like, oh, well, I see where this idea came from, but okay,
Exactly.
I've seen it too many
I
times.
appreciate Caddyshack,
Yeah.
but I don't find Caddyshack funny, I guess would be the way to say
I can
it.
understand
I
that.
appreciate it comedically for what it did for comedy. And,
Yeah.
and comedics or comedies in the movies, basically, and from the standpoint that it took and whatnot. Like, I get it on that aspect, and I respect it and appreciate it for that aspect. But to have me sit down and watch it, you won't see me laugh very much.
Well, you definitely won't laugh at Caddyshack 2.
I wouldn't think so, but
Interesting. Well, I would definitely recommend A Futile and Stupid Gesture. It's really worth your time, especially if you're just a fan of movies or a fan of comedy.
ever since I was introduced to the Borg, I can't say the word futile. Not like that. Futile. Because they always say resistance is futile.
Yes,
If they
they
were
do.
like, if they were to say resistance is futile, I'd be like, oh, fuck these guys. They know what the fuck they're talking about. They just but for some reason they say futile, and I'm like, oh man, you got to take them seriously. They sound
Oh my
a little,
God, what's going on here?
A little British. Like,
Just a little. Just a taste.
Like they assimilated enough British people to be like, all right, we'll say it like that from now on.
And they'll all believe us.
Anyway,
It's always with that accent. The last thing that I've seen fairly recently that made an impact was I watched Jim and Andy on Netflix as well.
Tell me about that.
Did you see that?
Being a guy who loves improv and who, like, because I love Jim Carrey. I
Right.
have since I was young. Like, the more physical Jim Carrey, I feel like was where I fell, just because I loved all that shit. But being an improv guy specifically, how did you feel about this? Because I felt like this. Oh, you go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Well, I mean, I've been studying improv and acting for almost going like 3.5 years, and it's interesting to watch Jim and Andy as a process. It's interesting to see that somebody going essentially what is full method acting and being the character, not just inhabiting it, but being the character. And he equates it to almost like being like a possession. Like he just, you let go of yourself and you allow this other person to sort of inhabit you.
He says at one point, Andy took over.
Yeah.
He says it like just like that. And
Yeah.
you're like, wow, it's a little creepy, but by the same token, you're
A little
like,
bit.
I understand what you're saying. Of like, you just kind of let go and let the character take over. Because I personally felt like it was an hour and a half of like, Jim Carrey's an asshole. It's like I get it on the one half of method acting, and you want to inhabit the person in order to give the best. And I mean, Milos Forman, like you're working with the guy who fucking wrote the screenplay for One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. Like you feel the tension, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Of trying to bring your best to the screen. So I can understand the anxiety that he must have been feeling on that level. But to watch what he did and be like, well, Andy would do that stuff. Like, it's not, like, I feel like it's setting up for audience members to be like, but that's not an excuse. Like, and I get it. Like, it's like, how much are you willing to sacrifice for art?
Yeah.
And how much are you willing to give up for art? Or even is it looking like, to you, does it look like you're giving something up? Because even after that, he had a hard time getting back to Jim Carrey, which I thought was very interesting too.
But he also said it completely changed his entire outlook on everything and has formulated everything that he's done since. But you can certainly see it as Jim Carrey's an asshole, and looking through all that's the effects of what he was trying to do. But he's also trying to remove himself from the equation to inhabit Andy and also then be Andy playing Tony Clifton, and there's a lot of layers to that. And the only thing I can say really in any kind of defensive way is just that having studied this stuff now and having playing different characters, whether it's short little improv bits or getting into actual scene work and acting, I definitely understand the benefit to method acting. I understand the benefit to keeping yourself in that mindset, because sometimes it can be very hard to get back to it. There's certain days where like you go into rehearse and you can't quite find it, and sometimes it's you have to figure out a character, and then you have to find what's similar to yourself, but then also be able to say, okay, I have this in common with the character. Best example would be, I love movies. So I want to talk to you and I want to share that love and passion of movies. And that's the whole point of the podcast and Mitchoy Chats. And then having somebody kind of just look at it and go, yeah, but I don't get it. And then just trying to like get through this and get you to understand why this is the most important thing. And there's a character that I've played in acting that's trying to do that with mathematics. And it's this whole monologue about mathematics. And it's something that I don't really know that much about, and I'm not really passionate about. Mm-hmm. But that's something I have in common with the character, is the same thing, trying to show you why this is so important and why this matters and why you should care about it, or at least acknowledge it. And that was like a way into the character. And then it's like, okay. And then I start to like, okay, but what would he do? And you start to completely break yourself away from it. You start to do things, behave a little differently, and it can be very hard to watch yourself in those moments, because you can lose so much that like he's saying, it almost feels like a possession. It almost feels, because you're changing your whole behavior, your whole mindset.
This reminds me of the old adage that I think it was Laurence Olivier and Dustin Hoffman on the set of Running Man.
Oh,
Running Man, what is it?
I think I've heard this.
Running Man or Marathon Man? I always mix them up.
I think it's Marathon Man. The Running Man
no.
is a great movie.
It's great. But the one moment where they're in the torture scene and Dustin Hoffman's trying to like, he hasn't slept in days and he's like fucking losing his mind just to get ready for this scene. And Laurence Olivier is like, have you tried acting?
Yes.
Have you tried just acting?
Yes.
And I'm like, it's so perfect, because that's the way sometimes people look at it. I'm just like, you're torturing yourself for what?
Yeah.
And I get the one half of it of like, you need to get emotionally and physically, you need to get to that area where you can make someone believe that you're feeling this and that you're seeing this and that you believe what you're saying. So like, I get it on that level. It's just I just laugh sometimes. I'm like, well, just cry. They don't have to know what you're crying about. Just cry. Like,
I think
it's like, no, but I have to know what I'm crying about.
You definitely have to know what you're crying about.
Exactly.
Yes.
And like, I get it on that level. You know what I mean? Like, I understand.
There's definitely a balance, though, for sure. And I think that, like, you have an actor like Vincent D'Onofrio who's very method as well, and a very fascinating conversation from Full Metal Jacket with him and what was it? Matthew Modine.
Matthew Modine. Yeah.
So Matthew's talking about just the process of that movie and how crazy it was. I believe it was on Mark Maron's podcast.
Nice.
But he's talking about that whole process, which was a crazy enough story. Or it might have been Bret Easton Ellis. I apologize, people. I just want you to have the facts. But him and D'Onofrio like really got into it, because like he just, he was so method, and Modine is like doing a totally different approach, and like there's so many different ways to get to that same place.
Strikes me as like Tom Hanks. Tom Hanks has been known to just be like, yeah, fuck this guy. All right, let's do this scene. And then just be in it in a second and be like, what the fuck is happening?
Well, the man, was in a movie with a mermaid, so you can pretty much believe anything.
You're allowed to do anything you want when you're in a movie with a mermaid. You hear me?
But it's definitely an interesting documentary, and I definitely understand why they didn't release the footage for so long. I do agree
100%.
with the studio more or less saying, yeah, but people are not only going to think you're an asshole, they're going to think you're absolutely insane.
Which is like, it was a protection for, I feel like, everyone involved.
It does feel like it's for everyone, for sure.
Because apparently they say at some point in the in the documentary that the footage has been held for a long time.
Yes.
Because this was a movie that came out, Man of the Moon
Came out
like 98, 99?
1999, and production, I don't know if it started in 97 or was through 98, but
Yeah, it was
you know,
right
he's here
around
20
there.
years. So
But like, imagine
a long
trying to
time.
keep all that shit under wraps of like the shit he did, and
Yeah.
like he is a character that is known for big spectacles, and you have to keep those big spectacles under wraps while Jim Carrey does his method acting of big fucking spectacles. It's like to be up in the legal team and be like, oh god. How the fuck are we gonna do this? Like, I could just imagine like heads exploding up there.
Guys, 18 years in a documentary.
Exactly.
I will say the last thing I'll say about it is I love Danny DeVito through the entire documentary because there's just moments of him like in the background going like, shit, like he's off the deep end. Like, he's just watching this going like Jim's gone, man. But at the end, it is interesting that the majority of the crew was like very moved by that whole process for everything it was worth, which I do find that's interesting. It's
at
like a
that rate-
Stockholm
I
syndrome.
feel like exactly at that rate you're kind of like, I gotta pull something from this. So, something of value.
Oh, that's what we've been watching. Let's move on to some news and topics, Frank Mitchell.
Yeah, we have a couple
little
quick,
things here.
Quick things. Mike let me know that the Oscars are soon. I forgot. So
Yes, the Oscars are on Sunday, March 3rd. Or is it March 4th? March 4th.
Tomorrow's the 1st. So
So
this is going to air after you.
yes, it's going to land after. So Oscar, viewings have been down over recent years. I personally, I'm hit or miss as to whether or not I'll watch the Oscars. Frank Mitchell didn't know when the Oscars were.
I wait until after. Like at this point, I'm just
Yeah.
like whatever. I feel like I look at it sort of like I know I'm going to catch some shit, but I feel like it's like a football game. Just tell me the score after. I don't give me the labor pains. I just want the baby. Just tell me what happened.
I think it's understandable. I think it's an extremely long ceremony. That's the biggest thing everyone talks about, and it just kind of seems to take forever to get through it. Oh no!
Can we
go
take
for
a
it.
bet on how many jokes there will be about naming the wrong winner? Because last year they named
Yeah.
the wrong winner, and it was a whole thing.
Envelope gate.
I'm waiting to see how many jokes there will be. Like, who really won? Like, how many will we see?
Well, we do know that host Jimmy Kimmel is secretly hoping that it happens again. Even though
He's probably padding it. There's like piles of fake ones, and he's like, how are the Ducks gonna win? You don't know.
that would be great if he's just like slipping envelopes out as they're walking out
Leah Thompson just walks up
for no reason. She wins best supporting actor. Or no, she was best actress. She was the
Walks up with
co-star
her
of
guitar.
that.
And you're like, what the fuck is happening with Leah Thompson?
Well, George Lucas had to do something. He still owns Howard the Duck. I don't know. I think it'll be interesting to see. I'll certainly catch little bits of it, but I kind of feel the same way. If it was a little bit shorter to some degree, I mean, I get it. It's supposed to be a big Hollywood spectacle, but I think in a lot of ways, because it's been going on for 90 years, I mean, it's very like of a different time when we all got together and wore our fancy clothes. It's
the only thing that I'll say is I'm interested that I don't remember what award it was that Guillermo won. I think it might have been a Golden Globe.
Yes,
actually,
he won the Golden Globe.
Yeah, for,
that
for
I
Shape
did
of
see.
Water. I was shocked because horror doesn't win. Horror never wins. So I'm very interested to see that. Like that's an interesting indicator for the Oscars. And not to say, I mean, they could be like whatever, who cares?
Well, usually what ends up happening is Golden Globes are given to certain people, and then the Oscars are kind of given to others. So they tend to kind of like fill in the gaps of each other. Like you've got Get Out, which is nominated for multiple Oscars, which I think is fantastic. But I don't like. Since Jordan Peele won like a Golden Globe, I don't think he's going to win the Oscar.
You feel that the Hollywood Society has basically said he got his, so he's good.
He's been nominated for best
I don't agree with
script,
that, but
best director, and best picture, which is he's only one of very few people to be nominated for like all three at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
But I personally think he's going to win for writing. That would be my bet. That's what I think he's going to win for.
You think?
I think so. And I personally, I would love to see him win, for
I want to see him win for anything and everything. You
Absolutely.
know what I mean?
I personally, I just enjoyed Get Out for what it was. And I'm curious to see what he's going to do going forward, because I did listen to an interview with him, and his love and knowledge of horror is something I I only got inklings of on Key and Peele.
Like it's something that like it instantly it makes you so happy, and I feel like it humbles you a little bit because I feel like when you go into Get Out, like I went into Get Out thinking to myself like, what does this fool know about horror?
Right.
You know, talking to me about that, and then I come out and I'm like, oh my god. And then hearing him like exactly like you said, like hearing him in podcasts and talk about his love of horror specifically, I just like I never would have pegged him for a horror fan. You know what I mean?
And he was
I
just
don't
a
know.
big movie nerd. I mean, he just
Exactly.
talks about, went to the video store and just got all kinds of movies all the time.
And I feel like the skit setup of what they did with Key and Peele, I feel like that sort of comedy can only come from people who have been immersed in media and not like actually in it and making it, but just in the sense of consuming it and just seeing it. And that perfectly lines up with like, all right, I watched a lot of movies and saw a lot of shit when I was a kid. I feel like that's what it always comes down to. It's just you watched a lot and you absorbed a lot. And you kind of take the best shit. And
if you can find a way to blend it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think he just knows. I'm excited. I'm excited for horror. I feel like I would be more interested in the Oscars and award shows if I felt like they reflected my tastes a little more, which I know is a very stupid and specific thing because you're like, well, it's not like I want it to be, so why would I watch it? Like some of the best reasons to watch movies are because you don't think they're not what you think they're going to be.
Sure.
But I feel like sometimes I just watch it and get disappointed with them. Like, this is where you're going to choose for Best Picture over all the other stuff that's come out this year.
Yeah.
And there are certain things that don't even get nominated that I'm like, really? Like, you can't even give them a nod?
It's
Like,
only
it
been
just-
within the last couple of years too that they upped the Best Pictures and all these things, like trying to incorporate more movies because the's just so many being made.
Exactly.
I mean,
We're at
it's absurd how much is being filmed now all the time. Well, it'd be interesting to see for sure. I would definitely love to see. I personally didn't see The Shape of Water. I would very much like to. I heard a lot of good things, but I'm definitely curious to see if that'll win it for anything. Any kind of acknowledgement to those types of movies, I think, is always very exciting. Because I mean, the last time that horror really won big is Silence of the Lambs. And it is horror, but it's also thriller. It's a few different things.
It's also a
blended.
procedural. Exactly.
It is.
It's, like
It's a blended movie. And usually, though, blended pictures, in a lot of respects, can be some of the best movies ever made.
That's why as much as I loved Get Out, I feel like at a certain point it went nosedive into, and I'm not saying nosedive bad, I mean nosedive into horror. We're up to a certain point. It could be very, very tense and very, very thrillerish, and then it went, no, we are in a horror movie.
Yeah.
We're taking brains out, people. We're in a horror movie. Like it's interesting to me. Like it took that serious, like, no, we are in it now. There's get out, literally.
Just get out.
But the Oscars, watch them, don't watch them.
We don't know what to think. Mike DeJoy is definitely not going to watch it.
I feel like Mike DeJoy. He's like, yeah, I watched the fucking Russian Oscars. I'm good. Like
he's like, oh, I watched my new copy of Charlie Varick on Super 4K. Mike DeJoy, we love you. We also think you're a scumbag.
I love Mike DeJoy.
Something I saw today I thought was interesting in my news feed was just an article that I only got to see the headline, but at least I will admit I only saw the headline. But I thought it was interesting that Evil Dead 2013 essentially did do a gender swap of its main character. But Evil Dead is a strange reboot / remake / sequel, because the original idea for Evil Dead 2013 is, in a lot of ways, it is Evil Dead 4. It could very much take place in the same universe and be some sort of an extension of that, especially now with Ash vs. Evil Dead on TV, on Starz, which is a great place for that show. Anything where you can be on HBO, or you can be on a Netflix, or be on something where you can really get into the gore and the absurdity of what that universe is fun. And we all went and saw the movie, and it was a great time seeing it in the theater. And there was originally supposed to be more of a cap at the end involving Bruce Campbell, which I thought was interesting. So you could kind of see this movie in so many different lights. I personally do see it as being connected to Evil Dead. I think it's very much, it could be an alternate dimension, or it could be any explanation, but I feel like I don't think it's something separate. But your main character, Jane, is it Levy? Is that
Jane Levy, yeah.
Levy. She is essentially your new Ash, but she goes about it in terms of the character through the story in a very different way than Ash, and comes from a different place, ends in a different place, and there's a whole different sort of roller coaster of chainsaws and lost limbs.
It uses all
and
the imagery, but it does it
Yeah.
in different ways.
Very different
I think
ways.
What's interesting about this is that it's something that they were gender swapped. It wasn't made a big deal that they were gender swapped. It was just there. I feel like two-pronged thing. One is because she's not named Ashley. If they named her Ashley, people would probably lose their minds. They'd be like, "No, it's bullshit. She's not Ash." And the other half of it is because people probably weren't sure about whether or not it was a remake, a reboot, or a sequel, or anything like that. So that's why they kind of went in with like, eh. And that's what's cool about Evil Dead is that Evil Dead 1 and 2 are the same movie. So
More or less.
technically, you could make 4 and it's the same movie, because it would still fit in with all of them.
Yeah.
Like, that would be interesting to add in a little extra bits, but it's still the same movie of different deaths. You meet up with different characters. You get a little bit of information about the Deadite universe, but it ends with one person fucking walking away, just getting out.
Yeah.
But I mean,
mean,
it's just interesting to me. Like as you mentioned it earlier, like you genres or you swap genders and nothing's really made of it. But if you were to do that now, it would be
there's just no big deal made of it throughout the course of the movie. They kept, at its core, with the original Evil Dead, you have Ash and his sister Shelley. So you have a brother and a sister, and then they're friends. And that's what this new Evil Dead was. It was a similar idea of having a brother and a sister at its core, which I think I think it works. But you have the guy who is his girlfriend's there. His girlfriend gets possessed. Like, it ratchets itself up that he's gonna be that hero. And it's interesting that it takes a lot of different twists and turns in order to get to that point, and then also to subvert expectation. And I thought it was an interesting piece, because that was 2013, and now 2018 we have the as you were kind of alluding at before, it's like you have Lady Bird, which is directed by a woman, which is nominated now, which I think is great. There's no reason that women can't be directors. There's just no reason they can't be.
It's so fucked up because this is a point where I'm like I feel like I'm like a boneheaded male with these things. I'm like, wait, women couldn't be directors before this? And not in a condescending way, but in a way of like, they weren't letting women be directors before this?
Exactly.
The fuck? And it's something I feel so stupid about, you know what I mean? Of why didn't you see any of this? They're holding jobs for men that are, and they're not doing things for women. Why wouldn't it be happening at that high of a level, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And in terms of I'm just annoyed at myself that I never would have thought of that. Of course it's happening on all levels like that.
Sure.
Why wouldn't you not know that, Frank?
Yeah.
Your act together. But it bothers the shit out of me that
definitely.
this is the state that we're in, that we have to be like, well, a female director would be like, what? This is what we're excited.
Yeah.
Really? Let them be directors. Let them do what they
Absolutely.
want. I don't understand.
But I don't think there's any reason why you can't have a female as a lead in Evil Dead. I mean, I think that it changes so much about what's going on, but also doesn't change a lot. And it's just I think a lot of the time it's not necessarily that big of a deal, or that it doesn't have to be a big deal, because people made a huge deal about Wonder Woman. And controversial statement, I didn't hate Wonder Woman, but it also was nothing special. And it was very much a stereotypical superhero movie with a third act that sort of devolves into being your stereotypical, I'm just gonna fight the ultra bad guy, with a bunch of weird sort of logic twists that don't quite add up, and rewriting of history. But it's very much in the same vein as a lot of what, it's DC versus Marvel, but it's a lot of the same type of stuff. Captain America, fought in World War II and did all that. You're integrating these characters and trying to sort of rewrite history and do these things, create something interesting, but it just felt very generic to me. And it wasn't bad. And there's no reason that a woman can't direct a giant superhero movie and put that together. There's no reason. And I think the movie
Women
does.
have directed some of the best episodes of Game of Thrones.
Sure.
And some of the best action in Game of Thrones.
And I think that, it does, with Wonder Woman, it's not, I think it's good that it happened so that you could have that, quote
So
unquote.
the steps are taken.
Exactly. You have that first person in there. But I'd like to see something
Better
I
movies
think
now.
a better movie. I think I'd rather see something less commercial.
This was my problem with Atomic Blonde. Everyone was like, "This is amazing. This is unbelievable." I'm like, "This is boring." I'm like, "This is a boring James Bond movie."
In some ways,
people
it was.
are like, "Oh man, like, isn't it awesome that we have a female James Bond?" I'm like, "No, you should make something better than that because James Bond fucking sucks now." Like, I'm saying him as a him as a concept. You know what I mean? Like, okay, if you want a female character like that, cool, go ahead. But it's like,
Yeah.
why would you want that? Like, you know what I mean?
We'll definitely see episode, I think it was 48,
Yeah.
Atomic Baby.
but it's still like that was my whole
Yeah.
my whole thing with that. I was like, you could like you're talking to me about how amazing it is that it's a female-driven action movie, and I'm like, dude, there were other female-driven action movies before this that were better. Like that, it's not the whole selling point is female action star. I'm like, I don't care that much. Just make it good.
Yeah. Yeah, I kind of agree. I think that's a good way to put it. That I don't really care so much about those details. Let's just have some great content. That's what it should be coming down to anyway, is storytelling, and that's what the whole sort of big argument seems to be with Lady Bird, is just that it was a woman who wrote and directed this movie and made it the way that she wanted, and created something that's getting acknowledged, and I think that's fantastic.
Dude, talk to me about Babadook. Written,
Yeah.
directed by a woman,
Boom.
still a fantastic, horrifying movie, especially if you have
Absolutely.
kids. I would think,
Yeah, and there's some divide in the horror community over it, but I'm with you. I enjoyed it.
Right?
I think it's good.
But
So,
even still, something that Karen Kusama, who did The Invitation, which is another good
Invitation
one. There are
from-
so many good ones
man.
that come out that they've written, directed. I'm like, these are fantastic.
Yes.
Like, I don't think...
and
I don't
just as
see why they're-
unnerving.
Exactly.
Just as scary. Just as messed up or gory or whatever. I mean, there's just it's interesting to see that people make such a big deal and flip out, like all the men who were freaking out because they were having women's only screenings of Wonder Woman.
Get over it.
Who cares, man?
We don't freak
Go
out.
see it. Go see it in a different theater.
No one's freaking out when they have ladies' night or any of that shit.
Yeah.
Oh, bullshit, man. Dude, get over it. Get fucking relax, all right?
Who cares?
Take 5.
It doesn't matter.
I feel like end of the day, fellas, stand down. Let ladies direct. Just cut the shit. Stop it. Share the fucking sandbox, please.
Share the sandbox. Do it. But don't put sand in the eyes. Don't share in the eyes. That hurts. That hurts.
No.
The last thing I wanted to talk about, Frank Mitchell, was just some Friday the 13th, the game news.
Oh, God, he won't shut up about this game.
I won't. It's the best game ever.
What? What now?
Well, recently, we've just gotten Part 5 Jason, and a Part 5 map. So there's now literally, within the game, there's Jason's Part 2 all the way through Part 9.
One of my friends has recently gotten this game on Xbox One, and he's like, dude,
Okay.
if you have $30, buy it, and we'll play. And I'm like, I'm not gonna buy this, but if he asks me again, I'll probably buy it.
I think
don't,
you need to.
Don't watch this, Sean, and don't ask me again to buy it unless
Sean,
I haven't bought it already.
Sean, I'll give you the $30. Make him do this.
Because he got it, and now he's like, dude, it's great.
Because it's great. I mean, the game came out back in last May, and has received numerous updates. More and more content continues to be released for the game, improvements, fixes to any issues and problems. They're continuing to push forward and develop new content. There's going to be Jason X coming out, which is the Uber Jason. There's going to be a map of the ship from Jason X, which is going to be cool. Because the only good thing about that is to put it in a video game.
Right?
It's the
Like,
only.
Just so you can see and go, oh, Jason X, and that's it.
Yeah. Oh, that's cool. Because it works as a video game character. And the same could be said pretty much for a few of the other Jasons as well.
You're like, oh, cool, great.
But it's just a super fun game, and I can't stop playing it. Can't recommend it enough. If there's anyone's out there who's playing it, tweet at us. Let us know. Hit us up on Facebook.
Yeah, tweet at Mitchoy Chats on
Please.
Twitter.
And Mitchoy Chats on Facebook. I really would love to get more feedback, because I don't know a lot of people personally who have the game. So I know some people through the PlayStation Network, but I'm very, very curious. So find me on the PlayStation Network if you want to play. I'm Tuna Foy. Play some Friday the 13th.
Now I want a PS4, but
You could do that. We can make it happen. Mike DeJoya technically owes me an Xbox, so
wow. So just buy Frank a PS4.
yeah, we'll just change it. He's never gonna buy me the Xbox, so I don't even really want it anymore. It's been too many years.
No, get an Xbox One. No, get an Xbox One.
Yeah.
So we can all hang.
Well, I think that pretty much wraps it up for this first video episode of Mitchoy Chats.
Yeah, I'd say so. Check us out at mitchoychats.com for all our podcast episodes. There are going to be more coming, so check them out there.
The podcast will not stop. MitchoyChats.com.
Look us up on Facebook. Check out Mitchoy Chats on Twitter.
Yes, absolutely.
I think that's it for now until we release the Messenger Fox application. But
Yes. Well, also we have our regular movie questions on Facebook. We got questions about movies, movie quotes, and there's a real fun game that's running with the movie quotes right now on Facebook. I cannot recommend that you get in on that and be a part of it.
yeah, we won't tell you what the rules are, but just start reading through and you'll eventually get it.
You'll
By the way,
figure it out. It's really fun, and
it took me time to set those up, guys, and this is what you do. But
and it just sort of happened. It's very interesting. But if you give us a fun response on there, then maybe you'll get a gift from us. Because that's how we like to respond on there. That's a lot of fun. But so from Mitchoy Chats, I'm Michael J. Foy.
I'm Frank Mitchell.